this tonight, or do you got stuff you want to go over? Because I feel like I kind of railroaded the last episode
with your
with the cows and the vet. Yeah. So
no, well, okay. I wanted to talk about electric cars.
oh, that is a hot topic on the scene.
Okay, here's why. So I'm driving home, and I see a FedEx van-looking thing. It's like a square box, and I'm like, that's a very new, fancy FedEx vehicle. And then I'm like, interesting. Let me take a look at it. So I was kind of eyeballing it, and it said electric, and it had like a little plug-in symbol and everything, and it was dead quiet. I'm like, no way. This is real. So, me knowing how our electrical grid is like barely holding on as is, because like to charge these vehicles, you almost need like a local generator.
Yeah.
And that's how like a lot of these Tesla, like new Tesla places where they have a big old diesel generator and they have a row of Tesla chargers. So like I always said, electric vehicles are like a gimmick. They're not like a real solution to using gas. Hybrid makes sense to me. Other energy sources make sense to me, but electric, because our electric grid is already barely like barely huffing and puffing along, especially when it comes summertime. They say don't charge your electric vehicles because it's already taxing on the electrical grid. So that said, not only it's like here in California at least, and during the summertime, nobody could charge their electric vehicles. That's one. Second, the battery doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It's not like a gas tank. It's so sensitive. Like you use the AC, you use the heater, you use lights on your car. Everything drains the battery to an extent. I mean, if you're like doing work and back every day, it's fine. I think it's viable for that. Charging at night when there's more power available, let's say after midnight. You get up in the morning, leave, to work at 7, 6 o'clock. Your car's charged fine. I think that's realistic. But like moving everything to electric, like and seeing this FedEx van, it would look cool looking van, but I don't think it's very realistic. It's gonna be interesting to see nonetheless. So battery technology, I would say, is not there yet.
Among other things, but
among other things, sure. But battery technology hasn't changed since, I don't know, 30 years, I would say. When lithium ion been more efficient, but it's the same technology. Kind of like, let's say, internal combustion. Internal combustion's been around for over 100 years. They made it way more efficient, but it's the same technology where you have a little gasoline explosion and it pushes the piston, and that drives everything. I mean, that's kind of like steam. That's the same thing. It's like that technology is from steam. And let's say, and then when we go to a gasoline, and it hasn't changed. Way more efficient, I'll give it that. And the same thing with the battery technology. Lithium ion's like where it's at. Like the only improvement that I've seen is like, again, efficiency, like how it's connected and the way it charges a little better, but technology is the same. It's not there. And charging, like, I don't see how people would realistically use it in a long trip. They do it, but the trip takes probably 3 days longer than it's supposed to. For example, here's the thing: I drive around the city. I would be fine with electric car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would charge at home. I would never probably use a charger because I would get home overnight. It would charge. I'm happy. I go out. I maybe do 50 miles, 60 miles on a busy day. That's easy. No, I mean, that's not a problem. But I don't think they're full-time there yet. Plus, like, imagine we would have to have, like, power sources, like local power sources to charge these things. And then we're talking about energy transformation, like when you go from a diesel engine to electrical battery, and then you drive your car with this electrical battery, like how much loss do we get every single step versus just using diesel to drive your vehicle?
So I have a lot of things to bring into this, because on the surface layer, everything you say is correct now, right? But I look back when I was younger, and the cordless drills, cordless flashlights first popped out on the market.
I could relate.
Now I get it. We're still talking like electric to electric, so it was like but they had a cord. You had virtually unlimited AC power to drive up to 15 amps of whatever you needed. The power, you could just have these tools with more power than you could ever need. No loss in efficiency, meaning they would run exactly the same. This is a lot like a gas-powered vehicle. Runs the same on a full tank down to the last drop. So we plug a tool into the wall, it performs the same until you unplug it at the end of the day.
Okay, that's
Okay.
a gas engine,
Right.
for example. Okay.
But they laid down groundwork. They have made battery technology so much better, because originally we were running on NiCad and other useless versions, and you'd get like these limited amounts of performance for very short amount of times, gigantic battery packs. It was ridiculous. Today, there's no professional trade, none. Plumbers, contractors, all these guys, none of them.
They use an AC.
And the
you're
cords, it's like, come on, I want to trip over my cord all day long. They've got a bank of batteries charging. So today, it's not the answer, but I know they're laying the groundwork for the future, because electric, and I have a friend, that isn't you. I know.
Shocker.
I know. And he argues this all the time. Gas will always be freedom. Gas will always, and I look at it like every other tool. Do people still use hammers and chisels to do woodworking?
Absolutely.
Right. There will always be a place for that type of technology, and that's exactly what it is. Because before they learned how to make metal tools, woodworking sucked.
They would use rocks, like
or
angled
whatever.
rocks or whatever.
Or they would bend the wood and tie it together with flashing.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but they learned how to make metal, and then all of a sudden, woodworking, you were able to do joinery. You were able to make boards flat and straight. And
Okay, let's get back to the drills.
Yeah.
Because you nailed it right there. The first electric drills, they were garbage. I remember using them. They were straight up garbage. Like how many, like you could maybe get 3 screws and then it's dead.
But my favorite part was like,
Yes, you nailed it. Okay, what revolutionized it is, more efficient motors, that's all good.
brushless.
Brushless, yeah. Some motors efficiency got better. But the revolution was lithium-ion batteries.
Definitely.
That changed how those electric drills worked.
And battery technology today is evolving. You know, you've heard of graphene batteries.
Yep.
And
For the last 20 years, I've been hearing about it, more than 20 years.
And I finally understood the limitations of it. I realized why don't we have these already? So that's maybe another topic.
We can't mass produce it for now, but
For now, we can't mass produce
exactly.
it. Right. It's super easy to make in like microscopic quantities, and it's super abundant, but we just can't get the manufacturing process upscaled yet.
Well, okay, but what you said about the laying the groundwork, 100%, because right now, and that's right there in my mind, is we have the car, the motor, how the car operates, how it drives, the efficiency, the electrical system, how it's all connected. All it's missing is, I guess, that battery pack, the correct battery pack to make this thing viable.
Let me tell you what my vision is. Not that I'm an inventor or any of these things, but I really believe that this is what it's going to be one day. You will buy your car with all the energy in it that it will ever need for the life of the vehicle. You will never charge it up. They will manufacture it. I don't know if it'll go 100,000 miles.
Nuclear powered.
If they did, it would be great. But it's the storage. And we don't have a problem generating the energy. We have a problem storing it. We could lay out miles of solar fields right now and generate more energy than we could ever.
What are we gonna do with it?
But we have nowhere to put it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the problem, not only for our grid, because that's going to solve all of that. And the truth is, and the argument that I have with the friend that I mentioned, electric is just a better system. You don't need to change oil.
It's so simple. Oh no, yeah, absolutely. There's less moving parts. Like, yeah, if you look at electric car, how simple and basic it is compared to a motor car.
Also, we're thinking of cars in terms of what we know.
Yes.
Think of your car instead of like a 4,000-pound piece of steel. You know, materials are going to continue to evolve. Your cars are going to get lighter and lighter. You are going to have cars that are going to come in weighing, you know, a 4-passenger vehicle. It's going to weigh like 1,000 pounds. It's going to be a lot.
That would be revolutionize the whole car industry too.
And a lot of what is taking up weight right now, and it's going to, because I don't even like this thought either, but a lot of what's taking up weight right now is what I call like over and above safety features. Just in concept, you have.
I don't see that going away.
What happens is we're seeing it, autonomous driving. When Volvo's already got a campaign right now, no deaths. Do you want me to turn the light back on?
Yeah.
Did we not move enough?
I don't know. I think the sensor's back there.
No deaths, no vehicular deaths by a certain time. I don't remember what day they have set out. And it's a lofty goal. I think it's a wonderful goal to strive to.
I love it.
But you think about all these points where most of the accidents that occur are because people are merging and doing all these things.
Yeah.
And when, you know, my car right now, if I get too close, it warns me. They're, again, laying the groundwork. When a car can drive down the road, even under human power, meaning you're controlling the speed and the lane and everything else, but when the car will not let you get into an accident anymore.
Yeah, but this is where it's going to go. We're not going to have cars. You're going to go outside, you hit your phone, boop, boop, I'm ready to go. Little box will pull up to your, you know, where you're standing. You get in, and the drives. There might be a person or two in there as well, unless you like pay extra for the premium package where you're just by yourself. And then, like you say, how much stuff you got with you. You know, you're like, I got 5 pounds of stuff. You know, you pay extra for that. And then I'll just you get in, and then off you go, and you won't even know. People won't even know how to drive.
Right.
It's going there. I mean,
because nobody knows how to drive now.
Hey yo, might as well.
Shots fired.
Yeah. And the combustion engines will be like rich people, just like horses. Remember, everybody had a horse, and now, you know, only wealthy people have horses. It's going to be only wealthy people have you know, internal combustion engines, and they'll have a special track you could go on. They're like, oh my God, this is what people used to do.
Yeah,
this is so barbaric,
and it's exhilarating, and it's not going away. They're going to lay this groundwork.
Yeah, no,
and I know we're not there now, but
okay, here I'm gonna add another detail to this. Energy storage, like you said. You've seen what happens when a lithium ion goes bad, or like when it gets punctured. It releases all that energy very quickly, kind of like gas. If you just like throw the gas and like vaporize, or like not vaporize, but like you just kind of throw it out and burn it, right? It's because it's that energy that's stored is released right away. So right now, lithium ion batteries, you know, they hold what, let's say 280 miles worth of range, whatever, how many milliwatts that is per watt car, or kilowatts in this case. Imagine, let's say, a battery, a graphene battery that holds, you know, 5 times that energy. Imagine the the release, how instant the release would be, and the chaos that would create. Kind of like nuclear. Nuclear has a lot of energy, and the energy releases when it releases.
I feel like, does everybody remember this car called a Pinto?
The one where you hit in the back and it explodes.
And it explodes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And here, okay.
That's why the Pinto has the Pinto. Is that a Pinto? Yeah.
And my wife and I have this really funny joke. It's like, if the car doesn't explode, it's not Hollywood. Whenever you watch a movie, it's like cars driving along, hits a, nickel on the road. Boom. So I've been in a car fire. I've watched my friend's car burn straight to the ground.
Was it a Pinto?
It was a Yoder. Toyota. Anyways, it was a Toyota Celica.
Oh.
And it caught on fire. We pulled over to the side of the road and we got out and we watched it burn down to the ground. And you know what it did? Nothing. Because if you just go from, 70s Pinto to 90s Toyota, they have figured out how to make sure that even when the car is completely, unless it's just an amazing fluke circumstance where you rupture specifically the gas and there's enough
and the gas leaked out all over the place.
Right,
yeah,
and a spark just hit it before it had a chance to combust.
Exactly.
Then maybe. But cars don't just pop like firecrackers.
Unless it's a battery-powered car.
but Pintos did. Pintos blew up.
They were designed, I guess there's a big design flaw, I would say, where the gas would probably vaporize.
The gas tank was in the back of the vehicle, located in just the wrong place for when a car got hit from the rear. It would rupture
like a
the
fruit
can.
Exploding.
No, and it would like pop the gas can, and it would go everywhere.
It would create vapor, and then the hot engine
and
spark it. Interesting. Okay.
Right, because it could just be a spark from the metal hitting the metal, and it would ignite it. So yeah, it was a terrible. People died. Lots of people died, and
Pinto. Okay.
I just I know there's all these problems that need to get addressed, but I believe they will get addressed. I've used just unbelievable amount of battery operated lithium ion tools, and I used to vape a lot. And I remember all the problems with the mechanical mods was that people would amp up the resistance too high.
Oh, is that what happened? Their boxes would explode?
And their boxes would explode. But if you've got the right circuitry, and everything.
Sure, the safety protocols are there.
The safety protocols
They were built over
there.
time. They were learned. And, absolutely. I totally agree with you. That's where we're going.
Also, I saw this ridiculous video. I had to I don't usually comment on videos, but it was one of these videos where the idea was wonderful, but the video was ridiculous. Like, whoever actually thought of the video was not really thinking. So they had a garage. They pulled their electric car in, and these 4 hydraulic floor jacks lift the car up. A robot goes into the side compartment, comes out, goes up under the car, which is already this ridiculous over-engineered project, takes the battery out of the bottom of the car, turns, goes away, stores the battery on the charger, goes in, gets a new fresh battery, comes out, plugs it up into the car, drops down, goes back in, then the car drops down with a fresh battery.
Hold on, why is that ridiculous?
The ridiculous is because
I've had that idea for years.
No, the over-engineering was what was ridiculous. If you have all of these things, if you already have the robot on the ground, you wouldn't build a car jack.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You wouldn't, if you were going to use removable batteries in a car, you first of all wouldn't put them under the car. You might put them on the back or the side.
Hold on, there's a Chinese company, and they're spreading everywhere with that exact thing. They have it's basically a little storage unit where they charge all the batteries, and then you pull up, it locks your car in place, and then it drops the old battery, puts a new battery, off you go.
Right. So some of it can be like if that makes the most sense where a little.
It's like a gas station.
Yeah, but that's where I don't see people going and these charging stations. That's just ridiculous. I look at electric cars. Like, I can't wait to have one. I tried to get the people I work for to buy me an electric car. I would drive it down, charge it while I was at work.
You don't even have to. You don't drive that much.
Right. No, but I'm saying I would just come in.
You could, yeah.
Charge it at work, drive it home.
I see. What you would charge it instead of charging it at home.
At home.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's, to me, the electric vehicle is like the phone, and the phone is the other thing that reminds me of this, because when cell phones first came out,
same thing. Yeah.
It was ridiculous. There were suitcases.
Yeah.
And the service was sketchy at best. You couldn't get a signal anywhere. And now it's like, you mean you can only use it at your house? Like, that just seems archaic. And that's not old technology by today's standards. That's, people still have landlines.
Well, lithium ion revolutionized a lot of devices.
It did.
So whatever that's going to be for cars, yet to find out. Maybe it's graphene, but like I said, I've been hearing about graphene for the last 20 years.
No, energy storage is what needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's tons of people working on it. So, yeah. Anyways, done with electric cars.
Are we done with electric cars?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
We'll do a part 2 next time.
Firecrackers.
Yeah. All right. Move on. Next subject.
What else you got?
That's it for now.
Okay.
I mean, I got my next subject I want to talk to you about is money and value, store of value. We're talking about store of energy. Now we could talk about store of value.
Mm-hmm. I just heard this. Money is just stored time. It's like money is just somebody's stored time, whether it was you or somebody else's. Yes.
So I was gonna talk about how it gets taken away from us. Theft, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. Inflation.
Well, inflation's part of it. Mm-hmm. That we lose that. Okay, so let's say I worked a day, I made $100. That $100 is storing my time. So you nailed it. That value is time. Mm-hmm. So I have this $100 bill, and that's my time. If that $100 bill sits there for 10 years, let's say, since 2014, that's a different dollar, $100 bill. That $100 bill is only worth $60 now. So where's that go? You can't just lose it. That value's still there. So there's enough manipulation going on where that value is getting taken. Like, what can you store value in that holds its value?
Well, first think of it like this. Long time ago, before we had a monetary system, and this is in no way in support of a monetary system, but just for the argument of it. Okay.
Sure.
You grow a crop.
Okay.
It's a beautiful crop. It's 100% of its value. 2 weeks later, it's gone. It's rotten.
It's worthless. Yeah.
Worthless.
No value. Okay.
The fact that if you could tell somebody you can grow a whole crop and in 50 years it'll still be worth at least half of what it's worth now, they would have just that would have just been revolutionary. Like, you're kidding me. Like, I can store the value of my whole crop for 50 years and it'll still be worth.
That'd be mind-blowing.
So there's other great videos too where the having of something, you buy a pan. Well, if you don't ever do anything with it, it's literally valueless. It's the use you do with it, right? So what a lot of people have forgotten is that when you get $100, and this isn't taught, and this is something that should be taught, it's not that you have $100 that's so important. It's what you go then and do with that stored time. You need, this is where you invest it or you do whatever, but having it sit idle is always any machine, where you go back to the machines, it is terrible for a machine just to sit. It needs to run.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I feel like the laws of physics stay the same even when we're talking about a monetary system. If you just let it sit idle, it's not that it loses so much, it just decays naturally. The fact that we want to get our $100 and 100 years from now that $100 can still buy the same amount, I feel like that's an unrealistic version of the world, because sure, you made it, but you need to do something with it, or otherwise it's literally valueless. Because if you think about it, think about all the coffee cans in the desert or in the swamp full of money
With $2 bills.
right. But I mean, they're just, if nobody actually has it or uses it, it doesn't have any value.
Okay, but our current system, it's designed with inflation in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying the current system was designed by some absolute genius to include a universal law of decay?
No, I
currency?
think the universal law trumps the system, meaning even though we've tried to build something that
I see what you're saying. It's like by default almost.
Right. You can't get away from this because it literally doesn't matter. I mean, if some people say, oh, if we lost half of the population, oh, we'd have plenty of resources and all that stuff. But it's like, it gets back to that, but then you'd have nobody to sell your goods to.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So the universal rules, and it's kind of stupid, but there's a really good Scrooge McDuck, DuckTales, you know this?
Yeah,
okay. There's a
familiar with
video
it.
that literally explains this to the T. And Huey, Dewey, and Louie are in the vault, and he's like, what are you doing with all this money? And he's like, it's useless just sitting here. It goes out. It's the ebb and flow. It's the movement of the money that gives it value. Having it sit does nothing. It's like a stagnant pool.
Yep.
It rots.
Well, that's a really good way to look at it then.
And that's why I say what's really important. So we teach everybody go out in the world and make the money.
Yeah.
But why?
Well, nobody teaches anybody what to do with it properly.
And nobody knows really what to do with it properly. Very few people actually, if you give them, there's people, if you give them $100 in a couple of months, they'll come back and they'll be like, well, it's 5 now. And a year later, it'll be like, well, now it's 20. And, 10 years from now, it's like, well, I'm going to retire.
There's the parable from the Bible, the gifts.
Yes.
And those gifts, those and like talents, those are actually money.
Yes.
Yeah, so I found out, I was like taught that it was like some gifts, like talents, and then I found out, oh no, they were actually talking about money.
Yeah, because
the guy that buried the money left it there, and then the guy that had 5 gold coins or whatever turned it to 10 gold, or into 10 gold coins.
Yeah, and he was angry because you didn't even give it to the bank to get at least some interest on it. So like you just buried it, and it's nothing. It's just, you're just handing me back what I gave you.
Yep. It's like, I gave you to do something with it, grow it.
Right.
And that's why that guy oh, but he has 10 coins. He's so wealthy. Take away from him. No, I'm going to give it to him because he'll grow even more.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we could go back into the whole capitalism portion from there.
No, and I think the only other argument delves into socialism. And I've wrestled with this internally a lot, because the hard part for me is that somebody's time is worth so much more than somebody else's. Because I feel like the only reason that we can have a doctor that makes, $500,000 a year doing whatever he does is because we have a garbage man to clean his driveway.
Okay, but hold on.
Yeah.
Garbage man skill set.
I completely agree, but it's not.
You could get 100 out of the 100 people. Let's say get 100 people. Probably 98 of those people could do what that garbage man could do.
And it's not even a matter of that.
Okay.
It's a matter of, you need just an arbitrary numbers. You got like a village of like 1,000 people, right? you need a certain percentage of them to be garbage men, no matter, even if those garbage.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. The society requires it and needs it. Absolutely. 100%.
Right. So my problem is not that you should compare the skill sets, because to me the argument is, if you actually compare the highest need thing that we currently have, and this will always go back to our food producers.
Sure.
The farmer, if there's anybody who should be making the most money.
That's number one. That is,
right.
Number,
Because without an abundance of food, and this goes all the way back to the days of the plow, without the abundance of food, there isn't enough time for everybody else to go off and do all these other things.
Remember, number one's food. Number two is communication.
We'll debate on
Okay.
Because shelter to me is 2.
Well, that's a different category, I guess.
And then number 3 for me is the people to teach the next generation so that they can continue on, which could be communication. But to me, the 3 most powerful things that those are the lowest paid fields. Think about it. Our teachers.
Because I would say it's the easiest.
I don't think teaching's easy, especially when you're talking about teaching.
Yeah, but there's not that many teachers compared to. Well, I mean, I don't know. Is there more trash collectors, like garbage men? But the garbage men just drive a truck now. It's not like they walk around. So, I mean, I guess we could talk about janitors. There's more teachers than janitors. There's 2 janitors for the school, and there's 20 teachers.
Yeah, but there's janitors everywhere.
You're
like
right.
Like a high-rise complex. We've got,
right. Yeah. But okay, let's go back to let's take a pick. Let's say 1,000 village of 1,000, and you'll have 1 doctor in that village, but that doctor's skill, does it equal 100 janitors? Because he's going to make that amount. He'll make as much as the 100 janitors make.
Right.
But his skill, does it equal those 100 janitors?
His skill is probably virtually immeasurable. You know, he's, they're talking about like masters of their trade.
Yeah.
But the argument that I'm making is against his time, not his skill.
What do you mean?
So we started this off with money being a storage of time.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So this doctor, he saves lives, but why is his time value storage so much higher? Because without the garbage men, he couldn't even do his job.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So that's why I don't think a socialism society where everybody gets paid exactly the same is the answer here. But my argument to all of these things are that it is ridiculous that somebody time, despite the skill set they use, that their time is literally that much more valuable. And I mean, a little bit, granted.
Okay, but at some point, how long did it take to train to do that janitor's job versus a surgeon's
The entire time he was training to do that job, there were garbage men doing the same job so that he could do all that.
Sure, but the value and effort it took to train that surgeon, that doctor,
what if
does.
All the garbage men went on strike the year before his last year in residency? What if he went 90% of the way?
The student could take his own garbage out or clean up his own loft. I mean, you could look at it that way.
I mean,
let's say you work in an office with 10 people. If 10 of those people, and let's say they were realtors, and if every of those 10 people, and you have a night crew that comes in and cleans up, but what if at the end of the day, everybody said, okay, 15 minutes, we clean the office. It'll be done. There's no need for the janitors.
So this argument is if we all just took care of ourselves.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, I get it. But when you think about
what I'm saying, the value of their work,
right?
It they get paid like in a capitalist society. It kind of works itself out, right? So the janitor's value is whatever, I don't know, $20 an hour, whatever they get paid, right? $15 an hour, versus a surgeon is, $300, $600 an hour.
I mean, I get it does work out, right? But then
Well, that's due to the capitalism.
but you wonder at a certain point, you have people that literally have millions of people's worth of entire lifetimes.
Yes.
They just have it.
Yes.
And then you see people who work hard and break themselves and have nothing.
Well, then now the next subject would be like the system. The system is built in such a way where you're almost stuck being the janitor. Because there's two different things, right? There's opportunity and people taking that opportunity, and then there's opportunity, people not taking the opportunity.
Right.
Like in our environment, there's a lot of opportunity, and a lot of people just don't want to take it, or the opportunity is not there because the system is against that opportunity.
So this is a beautiful subject.
Okay.
I'm so glad you brought this up. So one thing gets back to what I originally said or one of the original things I said, which is, even if you're a low-level person, I'm not saying that a janitor should make what a doctor makes. It's really not what the argument was.
Okay. Yeah.
But in the society we live in, if we had the right education, the janitor could figure out how to put a few dollars aside, make it grow a little, put a few more dollars aside, make it grow a little bit with what he's already set up. And eventually, he could live a really nice life, even though he's not, at the doctor level or whatever.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So one thing that we're missing is the education. Now, what I want to point out is how apparent this has become after I married Tanisha.
Okay.
So Tanisha, and I am not a financial expert, but just based on where she lived and grew up versus where I lived and grew up, keeping in mind I was homeschooled and grew up in a rural area. She grew up in Richmond. Okay. She had no concept that we could refinance our car after the loan. She didn't even know it was a possibility. She thought you got a loan, it was set at 15% for your car, and you rocked it until you paid it off. And here I come along and I'm like, well, yeah, you can get your car at 15% to get it, but in like 6 months, let's just get that refinanced. And she was just like,
what?
Well, right. Well, what? And so this whole concept of financial literacy is, I think.
Oh, you just nailed it though. Financial literacy.
Yeah. And it's heartbreaking to me.
Nobody gets taught that though.
No, right.
Unless you have somebody in your family, wealthy parents, that been taught by other wealthy parents, and it's kind of been passed down. Financial literacy is like one of those things that are kind of kept in the family.
Well, I think one of the strange parts is,
or in the culture.
Growing up, I didn't get taught how to make billions, right? I was grown in a zone, right, where I had like this much knowledge. But what was crazy about it is that I never realized that some of these simple concepts, that other people didn't have those at all.
Yeah, no, I know where you're coming from. Yeah.
And so I think there's almost like a geographic problem. If you live in Walnut Creek, I think you're just going to see other people doing things.
Or do you live in Walnut Creek because you know how to do things?
Well,
and that's why they all live where they live.
Right. So I don't know. It's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but
yeah, exactly.
But the financial literacy, I think, I see a lot of people making movements towards this. I think it's super important because I think I think there's room for everybody to be okay. I see how much homelessness we have. It's really heartbreaking to me. And you know, I see people with enough stored time that they could just fix it, if and not even really be that affected. There's like 10 or 20 people in the world that could fix. Not, and again, not that this is the answer.
Well, you can't fix that though. That's the thing. Like if you ever seen interviews of homeless, they want to live like that. How do you fix that? Do you okay? So imagine that money we would set up like a little community of where homeless could live for free. Will that create more homeless wanting to live for free? First of all. Second of all, when you build that community, do you think it's going to be nice and clean? It's going to be a cesspool.
So I think there are a certain amount of people that will probably always gravitate into that lifestyle, right?
Okay.
But I think what we're seeing today is an unnatural sickness, to say the least. It is. I think if we went
100%.
I think if we took your idea, which I think we should do at some point, and we walked in to any of them anywhere today, not 20 years ago, but today, and we said, "How did you get here, and would you stay? Would you want to stay like this?" I don't think that it's a very high number of them today. You know, I think you'd find maybe 1 out of 10 that would be like, "No, this is what I've always done. This is what I'm doing."
Sure. No. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot involved with drug addiction right now, and the fentanyl. What's happening in fentanyl? I think that's a huge portion of it. Anyway, so let's kind of rewind back to store of value.
Okay.
Here's my two things that I've kind of recognized. So imagine and don't imagine, that's what it was. Was it like 60 years ago, 70 years ago? 1 gram of gold was worth $20. Now 1 gram of gold is worth $2,000. So, like I said, that $100 would be $1 today. Or was it 10 cents? I can't do the math.
All right. Well, so it's interesting though that you're making a great argument for the gold standard. That there are certain things that if this is all you did, if this is all you ever bought, at least it would never lose its original value. It would keep
its value. Oh, and only because we live in a society that we agree on that gold has value.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to get. It's very useful right now. But if we were all just kind of hunting, with our spears, then gold would like really not have value other than it's pretty.
But there would always be something like that, like spears, arrows, right? Whatever. If you were the guy who just kept making arrows,
yeah, that wouldn't lose value. Absolutely, yeah.
Right. I mean, there's always been something.
I mean, it's technically you could have bought tons of hammers, 70 years ago. They probably have the same value today.
Right.
Unless the technology would like sledgehammers, or like big block of steel, it would still have the same value.
Right.
So there's things like that could hold your value, but in that case, aren't you burying that? And you're just letting it sit and not letting it grow?
You are. Unless something comes along to change its value and upscale it, like copper. Copper was a baseline for a long time.
Again, that's because our society kind of needs it for technology. It was a discovery. It was just pure luck.
Right. The demand for copper went way up.
Exactly.
And it was like, oh, well, now this is worth a lot more. So you are right that it's not much more than burying it. It's just that in the instance of something like gold, it's a little bit better because gold never tarnishes or rusts. Okay,
so other than gold, what about land, property? In our current society, I'm not talking about spear throwing society. That's different.
So land is an odd commodity because even if you buy land, it doesn't ever stop costing you money. So in a way,
how's it costing you money?
Taxes.
Well, that's a whole. We'll get into that another thing.
But I'm just saying. Yeah. So it's like your $100, right? If you just kept feeding it like a $5 bill, so $100. Let's just keep it small. If you just kept feeding every year At the end of the year, you just fed it another dollar. Just fed it another dollar. Well, then, yeah, in 50 years, you'd have $150 and it would be worth the same as what it was. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, land is a stable commodity, but it's also stable because you are always kind of maintaining it.
Well, there's no. You're talking about houses now. You're not talking about land. There's no maintenance.
Land has property tax. That's the maintenance.
No, but tax is theft. So taxation is theft. We could get into another topic. It's too long, but we'll definitely talk about the whole taxation is theft.
But gold, you don't like. If you bought something like gold, silver, rhodium, any of these, there's things that you can buy that they don't require more input or you lose it.
Sure, but then isn't it goes back to the parable of he buried it.
I think there's better things to do with your money to grow it.
Sure,
but I think that if you go to the parable, right? If he'd have buried the money in gold when he came,
and that's what it was. It was a gold coin, from what I understand.
Right, yeah. When he would come back, it wouldn't have.
Okay. So now there's more to this. Now I lost my train of thought. Manipulation of people's perception of value. That's why I told you it was that 1 gram of gold was $20. Now it's $2,000, and people's like, "Oh my gosh, gold went up so much." Did it really go up, or is the dollar inflated so much that it's not worth like not even close what it used to? Because okay, you take gold, you take property, it all like, oh, my property was worth 200,000 10 years ago, now it's worth 500,000. It didn't go up. It's the dollar inflation that went up. It's still worth the same.
Well, okay, so you're right to an extent. So
I mean, there's demand. Okay.
No. So this is, you should know this.
Okay.
You should know this. When you bought your house,
yes,
you took a loan and a mortgage, and your mortgage and the rate and the amount that you paid for it stayed the same. Your income today isn't the same. You make more, keeping up with inflation, raises, your business, all these things, right? But you froze your mortgage rate.
Okay, but that's an agreement between my bank.
But the point is that you're now making today's inflated dollar amount, paying last year's deflated rate.
But again, that's manipulation of perception. We're not talking about that, because that's a whole different subject. We're talking about like store value, right?
Right.
So I think that's what I'm saying. That value's the same. The property value, unless let's say you have an influx of people coming into a neighborhood, it kind of raises the value.
Right.
That's
or
a
they
different.
Gentrify things. Yes.
They do what?
Gentrify.
I don't even know what that means.
Okay.
Okay. Anyways, so like scenarios like that where you have an influx of people coming in, like the Bay Area. There's a lot of people and there's not that much houses, so the value is way inflated in the Bay Area versus here in the Sacramento area. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, that final point is like you could store money or value. Time equals value or value equals time, and you could store it in certain things where it keeps it, but there's the dollar loses it, or the currency. It's always going to lose, because I think that's by design. And then knowing how to make those 5 coins and 10 coins, I think it's a very a skill that's, like you said, not a lot of people know it, and it's guarded very well.
Also, the hardest part of it is people have because it's really like the value and the time, they all kind of correlate in this. People have a very skewed sense of time, and I think that's the biggest problem to skewing their value, because people, can't even imagine how much TikTok is sapping the time.
Oh God.
Right. I know we've talked about this, but
Yeah.
but my point is, what a 20-year-old doesn't see is, okay, it's $20 this week, and then it's $40 the next week, and $60 the next week, and with the interest rate at 2%, it's not a lot of growth. The trick is the time.
Sure.
It doesn't accumulate in a year. It's not 5. It takes this span, and you get a raise, but people want to just move classes. They just want to be here, and then tomorrow they can buy a Ferrari. Or they want to be here with a Ferrari and go buy a jet. People, I think.
Well, no, the people that already have the Ferrari, I would say they know. It's the people that don't have the Ferrari don't know they want the Ferrari.
Right. So I think the thing that they're skewing the most is the concept of time.
Okay.
Because
that's interesting.
A little bit of time dedicated to learning financial literacy instead of being on TikTok.
Well, okay, then here's an idea. So the surgeon doctor, and I specifically want surgeon because their job is very kind of straightforward. He goes to school for 8 years. He spent, let's say, including the money that cost, for him to live somewhere, all that rent, all that food. Let's say it was $1 million in the 8 years, right? And now he is making $500,000 a year. So in 2 years he'll pay off that, and the next 2 years he'll make $1 million. In the next 10 years he makes $5 million. So would you consider that turning the 5 gold coins into 10 gold coins?
I definitely think, in a way,
that's a lot of hard work, which I think that's what it takes. I don't know.
There's a lot of skill. I used to work in the cabinet shop.
Sure.
And I used to see the level of skill that it took to make the things that we made. And I'm like, I should have just been a surgeon. It would be easier. It literally would be easier to manipulate and work with.
You probably say that because you're not a surgeon.
I'll agree with that. But the difference is what's on the line if I make a mistake. If I make a mistake building a cabinet,
put
right.
another wood piece.
Right. If you make a mistake as a surgeon, somebody dies. That's
there you go. Actually, right there, that could be the value of the surgeon.
Right. I think that's what is ultimately the value. You're like, why would we even want to free up? Why would we want to grow enough food and have enough housing and garbage men and all that? Why would we want to do this? It's like, because if we can train this guy, when Joe cuts his arm off, he's not going to bleed to death. He might lose his hand, but
he'll live.
He'll live. So there's your value.
Okay, no, that makes sense. So okay, then I forgot my train of thought. It was about the surgeon.
You can edit this out later.
No,
no, it's got to roll.
It's all going.
We should name the podcast One Cut.
One Cut.
Because that's it. You get one cut.
I think most of them are all one cuts.
A lot of them are, yeah. So
unless we do it clip it in 30 seconds.
A little clip short, it. We're like, oh, that's a weak time lapse. Why did he come back right at a different time?
Anyways, that's enough of value. I could do a value number 2 another time, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Sure, you don't want a few more seconds to Joe. We could talk about. You want to talk about upcoming topics?
Yeah, let's do it.
Longevity.
Oh God.
So this is all about specifically the effects of calorie restriction on extending the timeline of mammals.
Interesting. Okay, so
Not next
okay,
week,
you're
no.
talking about longevity. Hold on, let me
Next
understand. Well, yeah, right. Let me understand the topic of longevity. Um, you're talking about because there's not only longevity, there's quality, right? So does
It's
that include
generally
quality?
regarded, just so we know, it's generally regarded that people who live long lives live it in a better quality. So if you think about the average person who dies in their like 60s
Okay.
versus people who die off in their like late 80s, 90s, 100, okay, generally speaking, the thing that causes a person to die younger is that loss of quality. People who live to be 70 don't have the same quality as a person who lives to 90.
Okay. Here, let me throw something in there. So let's say a person lives to 70, from about 50 to 60, and then to 70, their misery goes up and up and up. And you're saying that person that lives to 90, their misery is pretty low until they hit about 70, and then their misery starts going up.
And a lot of times when you start like looking at the blue zones, the people that live the
Sure.
right, their quality of life deteriorates very little until the very end. The very end.
And I think that's we're all striving for that.
Right.
That's the magic key right
Yeah,
there.
nobody wants to suffer for decades.
Yeah. I would say a lot of people are right now, though, with the modern medicine.
Yeah.
Let's say diabetes.
All of it. Cancer, like people who get cancer at 40 and then they
Oh yeah, you're right.
Right,
Cancer
and then-
drugs that let them live another 20 years.
right, but they're always going back for screenings, and it's like, yeah, you're alive, but wow, that sucks.
Are you really?
I mean, it's better than the alternative, they say, but is it? That's, and then you roll that all the way back to, the Spartans, like, well, you're defective, off the cliff you go. It's like,
right.
and who gets to make that choice? Because I've argued a lot. I've seen my dad and my grandfather both pass from cancer, and they went through hell and died. It was like, instead of just saying, let me be comfortable for the next 6 months, they drug it out for a couple of years, and it's like,
okay.
but
You got another year with them or whatever.
well, no, that's not it. My grandfather, I didn't get any more time with. Once he got in his cycle, it was not the grandfather I knew. My dad, I did get some time with him, and I'm grateful for that time. But the real issue is, I'm glad that they were able to make their own choices, whether or not they wanted to go those roads or not. If my dad had decided to go a different route, he could have. He could have just said, "No, I watched my dad go through this. I'm good. Make me comfy. I'll live what I can and be done."
Okay.
So, but yeah, I think generally when we talk about longevity whenever we get to this, that concept, we can refresh everybody when we do bring it up. But conceptually speaking, longevity has an inherent better quality of life attached. I don't think you just live to 90 in absolute agony.
From 60 to 90,
Yeah.
misery.
Right. Nobody wants that. So when we talk about longevity, we're going to talk about it in a generally.
Do you want to save that for another time?
Where are we at? Yeah, well, how long where are we at with our
About an hour.
I think that's good. We covered 2 topics.
We're at 59 minutes exactly of it.
Oh, that's perfect.
Okay. All right. Wow, those were 2 long topics. Dang.
I think they're
They're
really,
on point though.
They are on point. And I think there's a lot, when we start having other people, there's a lot more to both those topics are huge. I mean, we basically
Yeah. There's
covered
parts 2 and 3 and 4 on those
Yeah.
topics. Yeah.
But I think they're really important because I think they're polarizing things,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. There's like
People,
two sides to them.
yeah,
Very
people are
heavily,
like gas all the way, diesel forever, and
no, we have to start using electric.
right. And I think the viewpoint is there's a hybrid version of this where of course we'll always need diesel. We'll always need fossil fuels to do things that in certain places that's the only thing that will get that job done. But don't blind yourself to the amazing efficiencies and incredible things. You know, who wants to walk around a work site with 75 extension cords?
Right.
Right. It's like,
Well, at some point, maybe not in our lifetimes,
right.
there's going to be a little box this big that, could power, let's say, 10 Teslas. And then you just has a handle and you go put it in,
Yeah.
glows. So at some point, I think there's going to be that where you're saying, yeah, that we're going to need diesel, but not if you have that power box. That power box, you plug it in, and there's like a bank of 8 of them for like a huge earth digger, and it powers that earth digger. I mean, and it powers that spacecraft. You put it in, and it powers that spacecraft for a year.
It's funny because Elon Musk, that's his argument is the one thing that we can't make out of electricity is thrust.
Yes. Yes, I thought a lot about that.
And when you leave the Earth's atmosphere or get somewhere where there's not a lot of something else to push off of.
Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. We're carrying, like, let's say a spacecraft carries its source of pushing off.
Yeah.
It's like throwing things out.
Right. That's all that it is.
Yeah. And if that source of pushing ends, you're screwed.
Right. You're totally.
Well, there's that new engine. I forget what it's called. It uses some electric wave. I'll do some research on it, but it's a theoretical engine so far.
I've heard of some, like, are we doing the aluminum hat section of our video now?
Well, no, I don't think so, because this is real so far. Unless it will go.
No,
ahead.
mine is aluminum hat style.
Well, okay.
So I've heard of these guys who supposedly worked, in the government secret areas and have access to the secret stuff.
Yeah, okay.
And the way that interstellar travel is possible is because what they create in front of the vehicle that's needing to go somewhere, whether that's a flying saucer, I can't confirm or deny.
Okay.
But what I've seen, and you probably find this online if you look for it, there's basically like a gravity generator, and it creates 3. There's like one in the middle, and then these 2. And that's how it moves and steers. And when you put the 3 together like this, it moves really fast. And when you click them over this way, it can turn this way. And when you turn it over this way, it can turn that way. But what it's basically doing is it's just falling into a gravity well all the time, and that's how it moves.
Yeah, you're talking about gravity engine, basically.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
This is just the aluminum hat
section.
Yeah,
no, this is perfect for the aluminum hat section because, well, no, hold on. It's almost not, because it's more of a theory to manipulate gravity. I don't know. Wait, is it manipulate? I don't think it's manipulate. I think it's more make gravity.
Well, so here's what it's doing. Because as I understand what gravity is it is simply there's some kind of fabric, and you see the illustration. It's like a trampoline with the bowling ball.
It's like almost time. Time equals gravity, or gravity equals
mass,
time.
And mass is able to bend the space.
Sure.
Okay, so gravity is just that influx of the space fabric. So what the little thing is doing out in front of the vehicle is actually creating a spot in the space-time, and that is basically creating this force for the vehicle to fall into. And it just is like the carrot in front of the donkey. It just stays out in front, and it's always falling into this, like, the penny well.
Yeah.
So, and then the argument that I heard, a guy actually explained it really good when I watched it on like PBS years ago. He said that's why when they're slow, they're so wobbly. We always see these videos of a flying saucer at slow speeds, and they're like, but then they can just jet off straight, make right turns, and all these things. And it's because that's the technology that they're using. It's a lot like, you could think of it like when you're trying to ride a bicycle. If you've ever tried to stop on two wheels and not fall over, you're super shaky. But as soon as you start going a little bit fast, you're stable. And once you get going really fast, it's almost...
Okay, so now the aluminum hat starts where this technology is available and the military is using it.
Absolutely.
So that's where the aluminum hat starts. We have the theory of how it could work.
Right.
And then we have the aluminum hat section where it's already being used. If it's being used, why do we still have jets? Is it because it's so advanced and it's being hidden from society because there's a certain portion that rules everything and they don't want society to know it because they are going to use it and because it's the ultimate technology? Because after that, there's nothing else. That is the end of like the technology scale. Because once, if you release that, then anybody could start using it and they lose all their power.
Right. No, and
it's like a hidden technology and it's never going to be released.
If it's around, like some craft has landed, I think it's one of the few things where they're able to see it. They've seen how it works enough to understand that that's what it's doing, but they can't. We haven't been able to like reverse engineer it enough to make it work for us. We can't turn it on. I don't know. I don't think we have that yet. I think if we have it, we have a broken version.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That because you've seen the videos with like how did we just all of a sudden know how to make rockets? Come on, like that just like.
What do you mean? Rockets are really simple. It's an explosion and pushes.
No. I mean, I granted.
Have you ever looked at a rocket engine? It's super basic. It sprays out the jet of fuel, and now I mean in the last I don't know so many years, especially with SpaceX, they just been developing, trying to modernize. That's not the right, but make it more efficient. The way it sprays, the way the turbo on there spins, the way the fuel mixes. The way it's angled, how many moving parts there are, it's all more efficiency, but it's still the same technology.
Right.
Now we're back to that.
No, I just think that, when you look at some of these things, even if you go back to the plow, we really get aluminum hatty here. It's just that
initial spark?
Like, of somewhere in a lot of these things, there's been like these little points where we've made huge leaps, just seems like all of a sudden out of nowhere.
Or it's because that technology gave us the leap. Like, I mean, when you're talking about starting a fire, learning how to make fire, and that was technology leap, and now we have the AI technology leap. Like, AI is going to revolutionize everything because it's gonna because at some point with the AI you're gonna say here's the materials that we have, and then you train the AI what those materials do when they interact with each other, and then you tell it give me something like a storage of power, aka battery, and that AI will compute and it'll run a bunch of cycles trying to figure out those materials, puts them together in different combination, and it'll go boop. Here it is. This is what you do, and you create this block, and it'll store so many kilowatts, and that's the power of AI. Same thing with medicine. You're gonna give it a bunch of.
So I want to point out what you just did.
What?
So going back to your storage of value and time. So what you're saying is the value of AI is for it to accelerate the time process.
Oh my God, dude, yeah.
So it literally is just like where before we would have had to mix this, mix that, do this, boom, it didn't work.
Yeah.
AI is going to be able to virtually do millions of those instantly, and
until it comes something.
hundreds or thousands of years worth of research. It's just gonna.
That's why it's so powerful.
And
Exactly.
so it's just a time multiplier.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's a time machine. You could almost say. That's why it's so revolutionary. And with the processing power that we're getting right now, that we're developing, it's only like, again, the only like goes up and up and up and up at a faster pace.
Interesting. I wonder how much real life change it's going, because, you know, like when you think about people 200 years ago, go roll it back a little farther. They had houses, they had horses, they had transportation, they had food, you know, they had family. Their life, the core of life wasn't much different. They had clothes, you know. The core of life wasn't much different than what it is. They still got up in the morning, went to the bathroom, had breakfast.
Okay, but then I'm going to add to that. 200 years, let's say 200 years, and then we're going to get 2,000 years. It's not much different. From 2,000 years to 200 years. There's a few things, but now we get 200 years, and today, that time frame, there has been so many changes that you can't even comprehend that. That's what I'm saying. From 2,000 years to 200 years, they pretty much washed the clothes the same way. They traveled the same way, right? Boats and horses. They communicated the same way, writing.
Maybe if they were literate.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that kind of, but from 200 years ago to today, everything's different. The way we wash our clothes, the way we make our food, the way we travel, the way we communicate.
But though the way we do all those things has changed dramatically,
Sure.
the core of life itself is we still have to wash our clothes. Like we still have to wear clothes,
Yes.
wash them.
Yes.
We still have to get up in the morning and use a facility, whether it's
Yes.
an outhouse or a running water toilet. We still need to eat and drink.
Yeah, but now you're going towards a matrix. That's the plug it in and
Plug it in.
yeah.
Plug it in.
And anyways, I think we're done with that.
Good place to stop
Yeah, right.
for the night.
Keep going.